Hi everyone, welcome back to the pod place. So thrilled to have you here. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. I'm so happy that you have chosen to come and venture into our little community here. The pod place is such a passion project for me, and I feel that it's just been such a beautiful resource for families all over the world. But also sharing in these stories and amplifying the parent experience has been so impactful for professionals, I know, in the space as well. I know a lot of professionals tune in to this as well. And I wanted to say thank you to them because that just shows that you care and that you're wanting to learn more about this experience from the parent lens so that you can be a better support for these people and these families. And so I just wanted to say thank you to you. I really do love doing this. I've actually been away for 2 weeks with the fam in Japan, which was an absolute thrill. We had the best time. We just fit so much in, and the boys just did not stop. But while I was away, I sort of took a break from work in a big way, which I really needed. But I've sort of jumped back into it this week, and I'm feeling so passionate about things coming up in the next couple of months. Really working on some juicy little projects, but also it meant that I hadn't been recording episodes. So this is the first one back after Japan, and then I have some really wonderful parents lined up for the next couple of weeks. To share their stories with you, some really different ones as well. And I think that's what I love about this podcast is we're bringing in, there's such a spectrum with deafness, and the experience of raising a deaf child is rarely linear, as we know, rarely straightforward, whatever that means. And there's just so many layers that we can unpack here and I guess navigate on the journey. And every experience, while so unique, we can still draw comparisons to and similarities to and connect with each other over them. So I think that that's one of the main reasons I love this podcast so much. So one of the big projects coming up is my bilingual blueprint. I've probably spoken to you guys a little bit about it on my socials because that's where I spend a lot of my time. And the bilingual blueprint is really, for those who remember my Raising Bilinguals bootcamp, which was a 12-week intensive program for families who are really wanting to tackle the bilingual journey and you know, become a boss in it, right? I really wanted parents to leave that 12 weeks feeling like the expert, feeling like they could take control of this journey in advocacy, in language, when they're having meetings with the school, just having this really clear plan of action and clarity around where they're heading with their child and what they need to do. And it was such a beautiful program. But the biggest feedback that we got from it was that it was just a lot, which I 100% get. You know, families, but life is chaotic. We can't always get to these things. There's so many, you enroll in a course, or you buy a program, you have every intention of doing it, and then you just life. And so what I wanted to do was to create or reimagine the boot camp into a more bite-sized, manageable program that was going to take all the core elements of boot camp and put it into something that was really accessible for families. And that is the bilingual blueprint. It's going to be 30 days or 4 weeks, 4 modules, but it's going to be jam-packed with stuff. And it's all sort of surrounding my 5C framework. That is a framework I've created for families that's tried and tested and is proven to support this journey in a way like no other, right? And I guarantee, I guarantee you will leave Blueprint feeling empowered, feeling so much more certain of where you are on the journey, not feeling alone, and having a clear plan for where you're going with your deaf child. And so when we have a clear plan and we have a clear vision for what we want for our kids, going into meetings where we have to talk about our kids, advocate for our kids, express their needs, communicate that to people who may not know them, becomes a lot easier because we have such an internal script that we're trying to convey. It's so almost rehearsed within our own brain, but we're just so aware of where we're heading. And it's just this unwavering presence that we have. And that's what I really want for families is to, because particularly with the bilingual approach, yes, it's getting a lot more attention. And yes, so many more families are adopting it, which just makes my heart sing. I cannot tell you. It is the best, but there is still pushback. There is still a lot of people out there asking why. Why are you including a sign language? Your child has devices. They can speak. Why are you doing this? And so I think being able to tackle those conversations with ease is really the goal because they do cause a lot of angst and a lot of anxiety in a lot of us. And just being able to remove that and be able to be really clear on our goals and our vision and have great key core strategies that we're doing at home to give us confidence. Like all of this stuff is going to be in the blueprint, and I cannot wait to bring it to you. You can join the wait list, and I will link that in the show notes, or it is my website / blueprint. So if you go onto the website, you can join the wait list there. There is also a very cool little masterclass that is popping up this week that I will be sharing with everyone on socials and through my newsletter. And that one is going to be super, super accessible. And it's really just to give you a bit of a taste of what you may get in Blueprint and also give you a starting point. It's called Breaking Down Your Bilingual Blocks, and it's all about removing the excess and getting really clear on what you want on this bilingual journey. So that will be coming out this week. So if you're not sure where to go, go onto my Insta or join the newsletter so you don't miss out on that one because it's going to be awesome. And I'll also link it here below just in case. But that one is going to be a great little starting point for you if you're sort of feeling very overwhelmed and not sure where to go. That masterclass is going to be the place. The blueprint's not ready yet. It will be, hopefully by the end of June, it will be ready to be released. And I cannot wait to share it with you guys. Sorry, for those watching on YouTube, I've got like fluff all over my laptop and I keep like touching it. I've got to stop. But yeah, enough of that. I just thought I'd take the opportunity to share a little bit more about that because I have had a lot of questions. Okay, into the episode. This was meant to be a parent episode, but unfortunately we had a bit of a fall through with the scheduling. This does happen, guys, right? And that will happen on the podcast because life is chaotic, but I have got a few parents lined up for the next couple of months, which I'm so excited about. So I cannot wait to bring you their stories. Okay, today's episode is all about, and this is going to be really, I think, relevant for a lot of families who are very new on the journey, but it's about 3 core assumptions. When I first had Frank, my deaf son, these are 3 core assumptions that I made or I had about bilingualism and the bilingual journey that I had to really remove. And I want to unpack these a little bit more because when I first had Frank, even though I'd been in the field, I'd been in bilingual education with deaf and hard of hearing kids for 11 years at this point when I had Frank. I'd seen the power of bilingualism. I was such an advocate for it. But as a new parent, obviously vulnerable and all that sort of stuff, with this beautiful little deaf child, there were a lot of assumptions I made about that early period in regards to having a successful bilingual journey. And I think some of these assumptions a lot of you have, and that's why I want to talk about them today because I want to let you know that they're actually, well, A, not true, but B, they don't define your journey. These certain things I'm going to mention today, if you do not have these things, it doesn't mean that your child is not going to be successful with language development or that you are doing anything wrong. And I want to really highlight these because these are some that I will be unpacking in the blueprint a little bit more too. But I wanted to share them with you today because also to show you that even though I had knowledge before Frankie was born, it doesn't mean that I was any less immune to all those feelings of doubt, all those feelings of not knowing whether I was doing this thing right, which is a huge thing I hear from families is, I don't know if I'm doing this bilingualism thing right. Like how often am I meant to sign? When do I sign? When do I sign and speak? When do I only speak? So it's this sort of thing, or why is this child doing this and my child's not doing this? And comparison's going to get you in a lot of trouble. So don't do that. But basically there's a lot of this self-doubt, confusion, overwhelm when it comes to the bilingual journey. And I want to just ease that for you. So I'm going to go through these three assumptions that I had when I first had Frankie, and then the truth, the actual truth behind these assumptions. Um, so Firstly, when I had Frank, I was determined from the get-go, once we knew he was deaf, that we were going to raise him bilingually. We were already signing with our hearing son before Frank came along because I was fluent and I knew the benefits of a sign language for all kids. And so our eldest has got quite high fluency because we were signing with him early on. So obviously, it was a bit of a no-brainer, right? Frankie was going to be a bilingual boy. We wanted that for him. We wanted to give him the best of both worlds. Um, and so I just thought, cool, sign and spoken language, let's throw everything at him. I got this, no worries, no concerns. Thought I had it in the bag. And turns out I didn't, because there was a lot of assumptions that I actually had in my head at this time that weren't productive, that weren't helpful. Um, and so the first one I'm going to talk about is this idea of this gold standard bilingualism, right? I thought that there was this goal, this end goal that we were all heading towards, right? Regardless of who you were, your child, your family, this is the gold standard for a bilingual model in the home, and this is what I'm aiming for. And if I don't get to this gold standard, if I don't get to this level of bilingualism, then I have failed my child. I have failed. I have not done what I need to do. And so I really put a lot of pressure on myself in those early months, early weeks, early months. And particularly because I was already fluent, I just took on that role of I am his signed model. Obviously, I had deaf friends and we were catching up and I had deaf adults in his space, but I still put that pressure on me to be his only language source in regards to that. And that I'm fluent, so therefore I have to be the one. No one else in our family is fluent, so it's all on me, it's all on me, it's all on me. And if I don't do this to this level, I'm going to fail. That was a huge thing for me, for a long time, actually. But obviously, that's not helpful. That mindset isn't helpful. It's unproductive. And it actually caused me to burn out very, very quickly because in my head, I was adamant that there was only one way to do this thing. And you had to do it this way. You had to have this amount of voice off sign time, this amount of spoken language time, this amount. SIMCOM had to be very minimal. I'm going to talk about that as another assumption in a second, but SIMCOM is when we sign and speak at the same time. And just a very brief little lesson on that. A lot of people think, well, that's great. You can sign and speak at the same time, so both languages are present. Not exactly true, because when you sign and speak at the same time, because there are signed languages and spoken languages have very different grammatical structures, syntax, and all that sort of stuff, word order. Generally, if you're speaking the spoken language, the grammar within the spoken language becomes dominant, and so then the signed actually follows word order in that spoken language, and we lose the richness of the signs language when we're using both at the same time. So that's just a little bit of a lesson for you, but I'll talk about it in a second. So I had this whole idea that I had to have a certain percentage of this, a certain percentage of that, otherwise it wasn't, I was failing him. I wasn't doing it right. And so that was a really huge I guess, wave of pressure that I had put on myself, and something I know a lot of families do as well. You might be listening to this going, wow, that's me. Hand up, that's me. What do I do? Well, here's the truth. There is actually no one perfect model for bilingualism. Okay? There's actually 4 or 5 different, if we were to look at the definition of bilingualism, there's 4 or 5 different models of bilingualism that we see. So one's dominant, one's equal, one's, I can't even remember the others, but I'll put them down in the show notes because they're interesting. But there's actually so many different models of bilingualism out there, right? But also, every family is different. Every child and their needs are different. There is so much difference in each of our stories and experiences that to all be heading for this one status of bilingualism is actually not productive, it's not helpful, and it's not best practice, because it's going to look different for each of us depending on our skills, our resources, our family lifestyle, our vision for our child, what we're aiming for long term, how we want that early intervention phase to look, There is so much actually in that we A, can't control, or B, we focus so much on making it like everyone else's journey that we burn out because we're not being true to ourselves and what we want for our child and how this is going to work for us. We have to do bilingualism in a way that's manageable, that's enjoyable. Like, can I say that again? Enjoyable. This should not feel like a chore to be bringing in a sign language for our deaf kids. It just shouldn't. And if it is, then the bilingual blueprint and is going to be a really good one for you to do. But also, it's just not helpful because it's not supporting your child if the whole time you're thinking about the fact that you're doing it wrong and that all the other families are doing it better than you and my child's failing because I'm failing them and all this sort of stuff. It's not helpful. And so what I want you to realize is there's no one way to do this thing. There's no one way to do this thing. It's really going to be personal to you, and really connect. You really want it to connect to your journey, your vision, your what I like to call your true north for your family and your child. Again, we unpack this beautifully in the blueprint. You get to build your true north in a really intentional way, and so that it's something that sort of becomes part of your inner dialogue as well. But you need to do this your way, okay? And that's may, from other people's perspectives, look imperfect, but there's no such thing as perfect bilingualism, guys. There just isn't, right? So some of the elements you want is, yes, we do want to separate the two languages at some stage throughout the day, throughout the week, but that doesn't have to be all on you, okay? So, for example, Frankie, through his week, would have access to 3 or 4 different native slash fluent Auslan models for quite a chunk of his day. So he is getting so much voice off Auslan. He's getting so much access to that beautiful language. So at home, yes, we do a lot of voice off because obviously I've got that fluency. But if we weren't able to as much, if it was much more simcom, I wouldn't feel that you wouldn't need to feel that failure as much because you know that you are giving your child that access through all those different avenues, through models who are actually there to support your family. Your job is not to be fluent, and that's another assumption I'm going to talk about in a second. But I really just want to make it clear with this first assumption that there is no gold standard for bilingualism. How it looks day to day, week to week, is going to be different for every family and every child. So just release this idea that you're not doing it right because there isn't this right gold standard way. Yes, there are elements within it that we need to ensure that we have if we want to get that fluency in both languages. But again, there are so many ways to do that without burning out. And blueprint is where I unpack that as well, because sometimes we just need a bit of a roadmap, right? And sometimes we just need someone to say, okay, this is what you need to do. Some people love a prescriptive plan. They love to have the calendar. All right, this is our voice off time in the afternoon. This is when we're doing this. This is how much they're getting a week from our native fluent models, so on, so on, so on, so on. But others just sort of like to fly by the seat of the pants. Hey, that's me. And that's okay too. And so this is what I love about this blueprint program is it's going to just unpack that a little bit more, for all of these different avenues and all of the different personalities. And so you feel really confident in what you're doing with your child. Okay, so that's assumption number 1. Get rid of that. Throw that one in the bin. Number 2 was, I've got my like notes here because otherwise I forget, guys, you know. I thought that signed fluency. Now, this is a big one. And this is an assumption I had when I should have known better because I should have known better. But when you're in that phase and I'm trying to flip the parent and teacher hat and I'm just a bit of a chaotic brain most of the time. Anyway, this was in the back of my head as something that was necessary. I thought that signed fluency was important for a parent to have if they wanted their deaf child to become fluent in a sign language. Okay, sorry, I actually had to pause just then because Frankie's childcare called about something. The life of a parent of a deaf child, guys, it never ends. Okay, going back to this one. Yeah, so I thought that there had to be an element of fluency within the parent because they were the person that the child was having the most contact with for the child to have this really highly fluent language long term. So wrong. Can I just say, whoa, no, 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 no. Parents, hearing parents, Your job, your role in your deaf child's life is not to be the fluent signed model for them. You are not meant to be racing to this fluency status. Like, this is what I see so many parents going, I'm not good enough. My sign's not good enough. I'm so slow. I'm never going to be fluent. This is such a waste of time. I just feel like I'm just frustrated all the time. And I fully, fully feel that. Um, I know that I was fluent when I had Frank, but there was once upon a time where I wasn't fluent and I needed to be fluent for my job. And so I was on a race against the clock as well. Different, definitely different. There wasn't that primal connection to my little one and how I wanted to not fail them and all that sort of stuff. But there was still this need and pressure for me to get to fluency. And so I can relate to that feeling. But I need you to know that that is not your role. I want you to enjoy this process with your child, learning to sign alongside them, okay? And bringing in fluent native models for them. Your job is to bring in those fluent native models, people who are already, well, firstly, deaf people with lived experience who have that really rich Auslan. Like, I can't tell you that deaf to deaf connection when you see it between your child and a deaf adult, and there's that just connection of knowing, of identity. It honestly takes your breath away. Um, that's so important for our kids to have those fluent native models. That is not your job as a hearing parent, okay? Racing to fluency in a sign language is the same as trying to race to fluency in speaking Spanish. Okay. A lot of people don't see it the same way. A lot of people see sign languages as they should be easier to learn because in some people's heads, they see them as a simplified language. They are not at all. In some ways, I find sign languages so much more complex than spoken. And so you need to take the pressure off to be fluent at a certain time, please, because that is not the key. And as a teacher for deaf, I have actually seen so many kids who I've received in high school with beautiful, rich signed and spoken language, and their parents were not fluent. Even when I met their parents, they still weren't fluent. But because they had surrounded their child with these models and these peers, they were able to build this really beautiful language. So this takes a village, people. Your job is not to be fluent. Okay, your job is to connect with your deaf child, to build a really strong relationship with your deaf child and be the person, that source of information that they can come to when they need to understand the world. And you unpack those concepts as best you can. If you can't, you get your people in, get your knowledgeable others in to help unpack these concepts with your child. It's all about the village. This is not meant to be on you. And your lack of fluency does not mean your child is going to fail. Please understand that. That's so important. Now, I understand for a lot of people who might be listening, they might be living in remote or rural areas where the resources aren't there. Okay, I need you to start thinking outside the box. All right. I know it's hard. I know not having those resources handy can be really tricky. But I have seen parents in those situations make this work. Okay. I've got families who, a lot of them access things virtually. Yes, it's not the best, but guys, it's better than nothing, right? You'd rather be doing something like that than nothing at all. Get your child in front of fluent native models as much as you can in whatever capacity you can. Sally and Possum in Australia is an Auslan program on the ABC. Um, Unfortunately, it discontinued, and I'm in the process of working out whether we can bring it back to life. So, side note, if anyone wants to help me on that journey, reach out. But it is an incredibly beautiful signed program. They unpack different concepts around science a lot of the time. There's a lot of deaf representation through sort of montages of deaf children with devices and signing and things like that. It's just it's a beautiful, beautiful program, and it's led by a native deaf signer and a coder who grew up with Auslan as their first language. And Frankie grew up with that, and he still watches it all the time. And you could be giving them programs like that where they are just immersed with this language, right? So it's not all on you. There's so many YouTube storybooks, ASL, Auslan, BSL, all of these ones that are being created. There are so many virtual avenues now. We are in such a lucky, I guess, era where we can access so much online. So please be using that. You can also learn sign languages via a live tutor, right? So there's a lot of people out there who are doing live tutoring for Auslan and for other languages around the world. So just starting to reach out to your community, reach out to the people that you like, those forums. I have my RB Club community, which is our private membership space where our families are constantly in there asking these questions. And I will often blast their questions onto my social media because I have quite a network there. So just whatever you can do to get these fluent sign models into your space, you do it. It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. It does not have to be perfect for it to be meaningful. All right. And just to round that one up, your job is not to be the fluent model for your deaf child in a sign language. Your job is to connect, bond, and consistently surround them with fluent native models as best as you can. That's it. That's the key. Okay. All right. Assumption number 3. And this is the last one. I could keep going. I had many, but this will be the last one because I wanted them to also, I guess, resonate with a lot of families because I know a lot of families feel these as well. Okay. I thought that there was no place for SimCom, and I spoke about that earlier, signing and speaking at the same time in our home, and that languages always needed to be separate. So I just thought, and let me caveat by saying when I was speaking, I would still be signing. So I was doing a lot of SimCom, but what I mean more is that I could never use SimCom exclusively in any way like that because we needed to separate the languages, and that SimCom, there was no place for it. There was no place for SimCom in the home. And that is the worst assumption. Firstly, I've done a lot of research on this because I know all hearing families use SimCom. Okay. Maybe that's a generalization, but I'm saying it. She's throwing it out there because hearing families, our first language is a spoken language, right? And a lot of the time we're still learning a sign language. And so we're doing more of this sign supported speech where we're speaking and then we're throwing in signs that we know. Okay. The research shows that SimCom does have its benefits for our kids. Exclusively, no. So using it only, no, it doesn't. And I'll be honest about that. But it does still carry benefits in collaboration with using that, having that voice off time and having that more focused speech time. Okay, so that's really important to know. SimCom has its place. SimCom is still exposing your child to language. But what we want to sort of try to avoid is using it all the time in the home, day in, day out. Now, that can be hard too, because a lot of you, again, as you said, you're still learning a signed language and the grammar and the structure and the syntax of a sign language and the word and how we would sign it. Like, for example, in spoken language, we would say, what is your name? And in a sign language, we would sign your name what? And so you can see how that can impact the sign language if we're always doing SimCom. But I wanted to let you know that actually SimCom, there is a place, not exclusively, but there is a place, and it will not harm your child to be using SimCom if that's all you got in your toolkit right now. So please remember that. Because also it's basically impossible to not use SimCom in a hearing family. And I know that some people are probably going to disagree with that and that we need to be more strict around that. But just unless you're raising a deaf child as a hearing parent, you probably can't have a judgment around that because you've got to walk in our shoes, guys. Okay, because this journey ain't easy. And so, yeah, firstly, it is impossible for hearing families not to use some element of SimCom. But what we need to be doing is we need to just be adapting as much as we can to our weeks and bringing in as much of those signed models, as possible, what I said in the last one, because obviously SimCom is still going to be giving our kids that rich spoken language grammar and word order and all that sort of stuff, right? Because SimCom is generally the spoken language will dominate. And so therefore they are getting that access. If they have access to spoken language, they are getting that access, right? But what they're not getting is the rich signed access. And so what we want to be doing is then complementing that with bringing in these signed models, getting them as much exposure to that fluent native full signed language in its full form as much as we can. Okay. But SimCom is not the enemy. We just need to be in the back of our head remembering that it isn't both languages aren't being exposed to our child through that form, and that generally spoken language is going to be dominating there. So we need to be thinking about, okay, how can I be bringing that more signed access for them, just in case, because a lot of the time they aren't getting all access to spoken language. We need to be bringing that sign language so that they have access to another avenue to understand the concepts they're being taught, the vocab, and just the world around them, right? We can teach through spoken language exclusively with even that sign supported speech, but it doesn't mean our kids are picking up everything that we're saying. And it does, and because the sign is more supporting that word order of the English or the whatever spoken language you use, it's not giving them a lot of meaning. It's a little bit of meaning, but it's not giving that rich meaning. And so we just need to have that in the back of our head. But is SimCom the enemy? No, it's not. As long as we are bringing in those signed and fluent models and ensuring our child has that exposure. Funnily enough, when I SimCom, I actually go the opposite because my son's first language is Auslan, and I'm also fluent in Auslan, and so I think in Auslan a lot of the time as well. And sometimes I'm in that Auslan brain, and I do this a lot when I'm reading. I'll be signing in Auslan, but then I'll be using a few spoken words, but they'll come out in Auslan word order. So that can happen too sometimes. But generally, that's when you're fluent, you've hit that fluency at both languages. And so it's more interchangeable. Um, Okay. So, guys, they're my three assumptions that I made, and I know so many families share them, and I really wanted to just debunk them today because the truth is, particularly for our home, it is filled with various communication styles and modes. Sometimes we're all voice off Auslan, a lot of the time at meal times and things like that, where we're having those rich conversations about our day. That tends to be when we all go voice off. A lot of the time there's SimCom involved because Frankie is now also SimComming a little bit as he speaks and signs and learns that spoken language more. Um, Very rarely, well, actually never do I speak to him without sign, but that again is just a philosophy of mine that hands are always up. But basically, it's just a mixed bag over here, guys. I don't have like a calendar set up where I'm like, all right, voice off time at 5 p.m. every afternoon. I roll with it, right? Sometimes Frankie has days where he doesn't want to see eyes. Well, we're having a voice off Auslan day, aren't we? Or sometimes he really is motivated to speak that day and he keeps wanting to talk without his hands. So lately he's been dropping his hands a bit to talk to practice his speech. And so I do a lot of sign supported or SimCom that day. I honestly think a lot of this is going to come down to your child, reading your child, what they're communicating to you regarding their language preference, and it will change day to day. It will change day to day. But I am very big on hands are always up. And this can be hard, I know, for families who have kids who have great access through their devices. And so they don't sign expressively a lot themselves. And so some parents are like, do I still need to be using it? Again, that's a choice for you. But for me, and I know a lot of people may disagree or agree, and I don't really care. For me, hands are always up because a lot of the time our kids don't know what they're receiving from a sign language receptively until we take it away. And then all of a sudden they realize how much they were relying on it. They can't always see what they're accessing from both languages if they're both in their, I guess, vision or they're both in their environment until we take one away. And then all of a sudden they realize that they were using that strongly and receptively. And so I think for you, it comes down to really getting in tune with your kid, their communication and language preferences, and what you know they need to thrive. And that's really the core of it. It's really the core of it. Okay, so they are my three assumptions that I had. And I hope that resonated with a lot of you today because I do have so many families who feel this, and I hope ease your concerns a little bit and potentially kick you into action. If you feel like you aren't getting enough of those sign models, what could you do? If you're really struggling and you don't even know where to start, just email me. Come contact me. I'm here to help. I have a growing network of resources in Australia, but also starting to build around the world. So if you do need me to link you in with someone in your local area, just send me an email. Honestly, please do. I'm here to help. I'm always here for you. And I want to be that resource for you. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for being here. I will put all those details about the masterclass being launched this week. And the blueprint as well. I will be giving more information around the bilingual blueprint. But if you are really interested and you want early access and a discounted offer, make sure you get on that wait list. That's /blueprint on my website. All right, team, have an incredible day. It is raining here and I have 2 more meetings to go to, so I better get going. But it was lovely to talk to you and I'll see you in 2 weeks.